I've seen it a lot, and don't get me wrong, like I've been interested in things when I was younger that I didn't stick at. I didn't dedicate myself to it, right? But
Because of
then
the
then
age.
I don't even know what it was, but it was just, like there's things that I just didn't stick at. So but when you look at it, and I'm sure everybody's had something that they started and didn't finish. Everybody has, right? But then, but then, it could be roller skating as a kid or skateboarding or whatever. It could be anything. But then I ask you this, like, what has that thing given you back? And the answer is nothing. And the reason it's giving you nothing back is because you've not given enough of yourself
Anything,
to
but
it.
yeah, yeah. You get what you put in. Peter Turner,
Hello.
you were just asking what do we do with this podcast? What that is the perfect question to get started. Because if people tune into this thing here, I just do a really quick recap of what the process is about. Okay. Basically, like the word says, it's a process. Okay. And the reason why I reach out to you is because I think that you're a really creative person. Okay. In my research, I found that either consciously or subconsciously, there's 5 steps within a process that people use to be able to develop ideas. Okay. So step one would be inspiration. So I'm going to ask you what you do on a day-to-day to be inspired. I mean, just look behind you. That speaks volumes. Step two, okay, in the process is incubation. How do things marinate with you? Do you need to travel? Do you need to say, I'm a 9 to 5 person? The ideas come at 9 to 5. And if they don't, that's that. Like, how do you process that? Step three, illumination. The eureka moment. When it pops in your mind, is it more at night? Is it more during the day? Does it happen? When it happens, do you have to stop everything that you're doing and you have to work on that non-stop until it's finished? How do you go about that? Step four, exploration. You're like a butcher. You got your idea, the beautiful piece of meat. How are you going to trim this thing down to get to the core idea, the beautiful filet that you want to serve to your public? Okay. Do you have other people come in and help you? Do you want to work alone? What do you think of people trying to steal your ideas when you're going through that kind of thing? Do you like what happens with all that? And then step five, implementation. Are you the kind of person that for you the whole thing of creative, when you have an idea, you give yourself a challenge, it's a puzzle, and you get the high for you comes when you find the key that unlocks that puzzle. That's enough for you. Some people are like, no, I want to share this. I want it to become a life of its own. I want it to live in a product. And it's, I know you have products. So how do you kind of like convert that idea at the end to something that can be sold like to the masses and still stay authentic to your vision? So those are like the 5 things for the process. Now, I explained that to you. Now you explain to everyone, what do you do, Peter Turner? Where are you from?
So I'm from a town in England, a city called Wakefield. It's in West Yorkshire. I'm originally from Bradford, which is about an hour from where I am now. I primarily consult for television, stage shows, and more recently, a lot of talent shows for television. And I suppose my title is something that's not given to me by me. I've been called a lot of
Mhm.
things by a lot of different people. And I
Yeah.
suppose the best way to say what I do is just, just to say that I read and influence people. That's probably the easiest way to
A social
categorize.
influencer.
Yeah, well, that's it. An architect of the mind.
I love that. That could be a really nice tombstone etching. Peter
Yeah,
Turner, architect of the mind.
and then just have the worst looking grave in the entire graveyard.
those are the most appealing anyways at the end of the day, you know?
I know,
Especially,
just the ones that got character, but I think what would be really funny about that, imagine it comes in, you read the word architect and you
yeah,
expect it to be special, and then there's like a little PS at the bottom and it says,
yeah,
PS, I never said I were good at anything else. Do you know what I mean? So it's just
yeah.
like beautiful little moment where the character stands out. And I think we, like I say, we're drawn to things like that. We're drawn to the unusual. We rubberneck around things that are not the everyday, you know?
Yeah. I think that people also, they kind of tend to have a certain, not to say admiration, but when you look at people who aren't afraid to have their exterior reflect a bit of, you know, their inner essence, it takes a bit of courage because sometimes there's stigmata that comes with that. So hopefully also with this kind of stuff, it gets people to like break that shell.
Well, you know, I mean, my thing was this. So the face tattoos and things like that really came about because I were a product of my environment at the time, and I were working in sales, and they were coming up to creating my first book. I worked for like 2 years with Kenton Nepper. If you don't know who Kenton Nepper is, go check him out. He's an incredible mentalist. And I was with somebody at the time, a partner. I'm not going to name her name, but because I'll keep her out of it. But basically, we were struggling like financially. I were working in sales. I'd been doing all right money, and I took some time out to finish the book up. And I thought, oh, this is going to change my life. You know, this is going to be this. And then made no money from it whatsoever. My phone's about to ring, but I made absolutely no money. You have to excuse me. I made absolutely no money whatsoever from that product, that book. And I think a lot of people, you know, were like, oh, he's trying to make money from this. He said, I made nothing. And then she said to me, I have to go back into sales.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do it. So she lined up an interview, and she was like, you're going to go and you're going to do this job. We need money. And then on the way there, I thought, what's the fastest way to ensure that I don't pass this job interview? So I went and got a face tattoo. And then I knew that every day to look in the mirror and do better than the day before if I wanted to stay out of a 9 to 5, you know. And that's the so it's, well, now it seems commonplace. Yeah. It now seems commonplace. So, you know, I walk around and lots of people have got hand tattoos. I mean, I'm covered. Lots of people have tattoos on their face. So it's the norm now, but this is going back maybe 12 years, you know, 10, 12 years. So it's, yeah. But I
all in all, sorry to cut you, but all in all, like you're saying, years. How many years have you been in this industry, like this field, this whole thing?
So I started when I were about 4 or 5 years old. I mean, estimating the exact age is difficult because I was so young. But I think I was about 4, 5, maybe 6. I know I did my first proper show that I was paid for. I only paid like £10 when I was 6 years old. Then I started as a magician.
Wow.
Got to about 10, 12. Started moving into more hypnosis-based stuff, and I remember there were a little town called Haworth. I used to go to my grandma and granddad's like every other weekend. I'd go to my dad's house, and then he'd take me over to my grandma and my granddad's. And there's a town called Haworth in Bradford, and if you get the chance to go there, you should. It's the town where time stood still. Mm-hmm. So it's all like 1940s. They do like 1940s weekends, and it's all cobbled roads still. It's very beautiful. And I remember going into this bookstore looking for magic books. And the woman behind the counter were like, we have one book that matches what it is that you're looking for, but it's not quite magic. And it was a self-hypnosis book. Mm-hmm. And I remember taking this book, and I talked to my grandma about hypnosis before. I was fascinated in it at this point. And she said, don't mess with things like that. You shouldn't be delving into people's minds. And I think it was that sentence that sort of lured me toward it more than anything else. It almost seemed like without me doing anything, it had more of a power than some of the things that I were doing magically. So I took that book, and my phone's going wild. You'll have to excuse me. I took that book and I hid it down my pants. And I had this book down my pants for the entirety of the day, just so that she wouldn't see it and my granddad wouldn't see it. And then I got home and started studying that. And then obviously Derren Brown came out and got really interested in the mind stuff because I'd always been able to sort of figure everything out, and I couldn't figure any of that stuff out. And so yeah, like I've been doing it a long time.
So influences maybe Derren Brown and maybe some others?
I didn't have the money to be able to see anything else other than that at the time. So like when I say that I were into magic and I saw Lance Burton on the television, I could only really be inspired what I saw because I couldn't afford books. My family always thought it were a bit of a silly thing, you know, and still, you know, like sometimes now when you meet people and you tell them what your job is, they go, but what's your actual job?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that is my actual job. And they're like, well, what do you mean? How do you make money from that? And I'm like, well, the same way every business makes money, you know? And it's like, but trying to explain to people like that, my nan and my uncle were very much like that she hated magic. She despised magic to my gran. I mean, she tolerated me doing it because it kept me quiet. So, but yeah, I think for the most part, everybody around me sort of saw it as something that was just a bit of a tacky, cheesy thing, you know, and because of that, they wouldn't put what little money they had into buying me things and books. So I never had books.
Did you have a magic name?
Pardon?
Did you have like a magic name, like the Fantastic Peter?
No, I never really thought it was going to be anything. Do you know what I mean? I loved performing, don't get me wrong, but it were almost, instead of it being I'm doing a show and people are watching a show, or I mean, I did little shows and bits, and I worked on a stall at 12, but it were always almost like these tattoos are a part of me.
Yeah.
So because I'd done it from such a young age, and it like, I would, at 4 years old, you're just still getting to grasps with the world around you. You know what I mean? You've not been walking for a long time. You haven't been talking for a long time. So it became a part of me as much as talking was, or as much as walking was, as much as breathing. So it was never, here's a show, come and watch it. We're always a case of, well, this is just what I do. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd see the people were amazed by it. And then, David Blaine come out. I saw him on television, and I couldn't watch that on TV, and I'd have to wait for Channel 4 to air it, or somebody would record a videotape of it and go, oh, I've recorded this on a VHS for you, and then I'd watch the VHS. My uncle were into magic, so I'm quite lucky that I managed to borrow Royal Road to card magic for like a night, and got a load of ideas from that. But at the time there were no smartphones, so you couldn't just take a photograph of a book.
So I guess we could already start with phase one, step one, because we're just talking about inspiration. So books, what you got to see on TV, like Lance Burton, the stuff that not necessarily that financially you could afford, but what was there, right away you absorbed that.
Yeah, but I also had problems with that stuff. Like I had internal problems with a lot of that stuff. And like my favorite magician at the time were Paul Daniels, because he were readily available every weekend on TV, and because he were quite comedic, and it were, just, I suppose, daytime TV in the evening. My nan didn't mind watching it, so I got to have a little watch of that, and yeah. And then when Darren came out, that all changed, and I watched Darren religiously. Wanted to do that stuff. Didn't realise that there were other things going on, techniques, principles that I didn't understand, know about at the time. Nobody knew about. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if you didn't have access to like the asylum stuff for Banachek, I think everybody, it didn't matter how experienced you were, bought into, especially in our industry, and I know our industry a lot better than I did then. I didn't even know it existed then. But I think from reading what I've read about everything changed. The paradigm of what were possible changed. Everything was thematic, as opposed to it being just pick a playing card, I'm going to tell you what it is, write this down, and it really changed my whole scope of looking at things. And then I sort of fell out of love with it again for a little bit. It were one of those, I get really obsessed with things for a bit, and then I don't, and then I get obsessed again, and I don't, and got to about 18, 19, again, picked it back up, started doing, I was doing shows in between this, but I was doing them just to, if I'm really honest, I was doing them just to earn money. It were a case of, I'd earn £50 for doing a show, and I'd have to work for a full day to do that. And if I were earning that in an hour, and it were nice and easy, and I were getting free drinks all night and food at the venue I were going to, then what, and then I upped my fee to a little bit more. I did work in men's clubs and all sorts of stuff, and yeah, just stuff that wouldn't interest me now. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot different. And then I did the book, and then got invited to go do a live lecture in Ohio, and I flew there, and then sort of seemed that overnight everything just changed, and yeah. So, but what inspires me now is vastly different to what inspired me back then. So I know I'll give you a run up to now. But yeah, if you want to know,
is that like you're mentioning Darren Brown, the thing is that and also you mentioned like mind reading and stuff. It's not just a question of you sitting down, for people who aren't familiar with your performances, and just like reading a BA or something. It could be cards, it could be dice, it could be a book, it could be it's anything. So that's what I find was fun about you, is that when you say you do mind reading, there's a scope to that. It's like there's a whole Peter Turner ecosystem, I find, in that. No?
Well, that's so. There's two. There's really, I'd say that my personality in mentalism would probably be best described as schizophrenic, right? And what I mean by that is that like, there's not an area of mentalism that I don't know. So if you said to me, look, you need to do something with dice,
Yeah.
I'd be able, like that's the more product side. That's the more. I need to know that because when I'm consulting, I'll get in. So like for example, if you said to me, I need 10 people in a row with ungimmick dice to roll dice, look at a number, and you know what.
You're like a library. It's like a Rolodex is going.
Yeah, I've got like a Rolodex techniques that I could use. You know, like and thematically with plots, I'm pretty good. Do you know what I mean? So like straight away dice. I know I did the Dice Man documentary, but that'd jump into my head and it'd be like, look, so for the next hour, I want you to live your life like this, and we're just going to follow your journey for an hour. And thematically, I could design stuff like that if I'm consulting. And you know, give me cards. I do something with cards, billets. I know PK. It doesn't matter what area it is. You know, I know. But then there's the other side as well, which, to be fair, nobody really gets to see. It's almost like passion painting. For the first time ever, that's the area that I'm going to discuss now because that's the side that I'd like to share a little bit more of. You know, people know me from my products, but I wouldn't necessarily. When you see me doing something that's one of my products, you've got to remember that most of the time I've jumped on a flight somewhere, I've traveled somewhere for 8 hours, I've been stuck in a traffic jam, I get a phone call to tell me something's happened, I've not eaten for however long, and then they go, right, we've got an hour to film this, so you're going to have to go with whatever the first performance is and just sit down and tell me. And I'm like, that's not really the way that I like to operate, you know, but I also understand that time's money, and these the companies, when they send somebody to film me or they send somebody to come out and capture something, that's that. And also when it's product based, like I don't mind doing it. Like I have a rule, the rule that I have, if methodologically it's something that is going to be repeatable, so it's a physical method. So like, let's say, you know, and I hope you don't mind me talking about certain methods, but if it's like a peak, for example, then I don't mind performing that in my living room on a table to somebody that's sat at the side of me, because the method is going to be the same whether I do it here or in the streets. It's going to be the same whether I do it at a gig or I'm doing it there. The only difference is the variables of things that might occur. For example, somebody might not write something down properly or whatever, but then that performance would probably likely never be aired anyway if somebody did that in the street. So it doesn't matter if I put that person in the hot seat at my table and perform it there. Whereas if it's something that's more psychological, then I try to make a rule of going out and doing this in an environment that's not planned, where things could go wrong, because then I can show those variables and show you how I operate. Yeah, it's more organic. So that's the rules that I sort of have in that. But my other stuff, nobody gets to see, you know, like I mean, I showed you a sneak peek of some of my things that nobody will, maybe people see, maybe won't. But I've been compiling footage for 10 years, you know. I've got stacks and stacks of hard drives that are terabytes full with passion paintings, and that's you know, for this podcast I'd like to talk about what my inspirations are for the stuff that people never get to see, and then where it ends up at the end, because that's sort of a mix of question 1 and question 5. So to answer your question for question 1, so we'll talk about this person that's not the products, and then we'll get to the and I'll sort of I'll blend those two worlds for question 4, I think it was, where you were talking where you were talking about how to sell this stuff and how to the last step, because it's not for everyone. That's the last step 5. So
4 is basically the exploration, you know.
That's it. So step 1. So my inspirations are not mentalism related. And not mentalism related. Like my product stuff is mentalism related. You know, like with products, what it is I'm fixing a problem that exists. So like I'll give you a good example of that, and then I'm going to bounce backwards and forwards and then stay true to the character that nobody sees. But like mother of all book tests, right? Like, you know, we all know that it's a very solid, very great piece of mentalism. It's like a very good piece of mentalism. It's like, you know, you're going to get given a book. You know that as soon as you've got what you need, you're going to know what it is, right? My problem with it is I look at that and I'll go, okay, like the compromise is that I need to know that this is a long word, and I need to know that what the first letter in the word is. Well, that's a problem for me, because if you said, if I said to you right now to think of a long word that you could visualize that starts with the letter U,
Okay, yeah.
right? Chances are it's going to be umbrella or uniform or unicorn. Do you know what I mean? There's not very many words that start with that letter. And I'm not saying that, to me, it drastically reduces the field of what's possible.
It's impossible. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's like, but that comes at the cost. So basically, Tommy Wonder once said, "Don't let the presentation be a casualty of the method."
Yes.
Right. And it does in that. I feel it does. Like for me, for my what I like and what I want for me, it does. It becomes I'm now present. I'm reducing how special this moment is.
You don't want to fence it in.
Because you're telling me that information. You're telling me it. Right? So it's like if you're going to tell me that, like, and you know you're telling me that, then now I've suddenly gone from this 40,000 words or whatever in the book to like one word that's long, and all of a sudden you're telling me what this first letter is, and now, and I know it's impressive, the reactions speak for themselves, but for me it's just a problem, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So what I do with my mentalism is I'll go, right, how do I fix that problem? And that's the puzzle aspect of it, right? Yeah. And then what I do is I just do it, I just talk about it my way, talk about it from my perspective, and then I write about it. And then it goes out, and that's the business aspect of what I do. When I decide to share that, I don't think people understand the R&D that goes into.
Oh Lord, that's the word that no one ever speaks about. No one said like that word R&D, like, or just it's research and development for the. Listen, do you know how like it's an endless money pit.
You know it, like that's
it's like nonstop. But if you want to do something that's good. And it's going to go out. It's like having a chef that wouldn't taste his food that goes out. It doesn't work that.
Yeah, and that's it. And you know, I've got drawers and drawers full of stuff that product-wise that just were never good enough. But I invest thousands into trying to get stuff sent to me, fixing stuff, and then just going, you know what, it's not going to work. Let's move on to the next thing. And that, you know, like the money or the sponsorship for that has to come from somewhere. It's a balance, right? So I know. So that's a business, you know, like, and when I'm consulting, that's a business, and when you let your guard down on stuff like that, and I do as best as I can to be like, you know, giving favors, and it ends up coming at the cost of me and my family, right? So there's a point now where I've hit where I'm just like, okay.
An idea, like you're saying, the research and development, it's like the idea with like Picasso painting in the park, and then someone says, "Oh, I like how you paint. Can you make my portrait?" Yeah, perfect. How much it's going to cost? $5,000. Yeah, but it only took you 5 minutes. No, it took me 15 years to be able to do it in this 5 minutes. There's something in there that people just don't grasp. Oh, he's talented. He likes doing it. It's fun for him. Yeah, it is.
And do you know what? It's not as fun as people think. That's the thing. It's like when you've like, you know, you're doing 30 hours to travel to somewhere, and then you get in, and the only thing that you want to do is sleep, and the person that you're going to see is, say, American. So what they'll do is they'll go, well, my schedule tells me I need to film this now because, you know, I can't film. I go to bed at 9-10 o'clock, and you're like, off a 30-hour flight, that's not fun, right? It's not fun. You know, like
you have to be styling, perform. You have to nail it. The reactions. Did you capture it? Yes. Let's get, you know.
That's it. And then you get that one chance, and then it goes out, and then it's open forum for people to discuss how good it is, how bad it is, and it's like, you know, you're not going to be on your A game all the time. But the passion projects, and that's the stuff I do want to talk about, and is for me is very different. So that's why I'm saying it's almost like I'm a schizophrenic, because the passion stuff, it's so. When I say this, I don't mean it egotistically. I'm just talking out of pride. I feel it's so beautiful that I don't want to share it in the same way, and that I do for fun. That I do, and I spend time filming it, and I spend time editing it, and I spend time looking at it, and I spend time dreaming it up, and I spend time thinking about it and obsessing over it. And then when this beautiful portrait's been painted, and I'm speaking metaphorically, I then wrap it in paper and bubble wrap, and then it gets put in the attic.
Yeah.
And then most people never see it, and they never get to see my best performances. They never get to see my best ideas. They never get to see my best
project.
That's it. And maybe now I think I'm ready to start sharing that stuff, and I'm ready now to start peeling back. And there'll be, you know, for me, I don't want there to be a charge on that. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be that I'm selling it's not a product. It's I'll put it out there, and if people like it, then we'll discuss where we go from there. Do you know what I mean? And how we can keep it going on. Do you know what I mean? How and if this is helping the community, then even better. But yeah, so my passion there. What I'll do is, my most viewed platform, I'd say, is YouTube. So I have every subscription service, but I don't really watch TV. So I might put Netflix on in the background just whilst I'm doing something, and I'm ignoring it. Right, I spend more time searching the menus in Netflix than I do watching stuff. I just click something on and leave it, right? And more often than not, it's something I'd never pick. So I'd never choose it. And then I like, people put me onto weird series like, oh, you don't have the time in the day, but you love documentaries. Here's 60-second documentaries.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then they'll send me like 60-second documentaries, right? And I'm right into like the drawer at the side of me here is full of like electricals and PCBs and boards. And I take stuff apart and I solder stuff and I fix chips and it's all, I'm into electrics, I'm into that, and I'm into music and I play the guitar and like so what I do is I go right, okay, that's interesting. Like for example, looking at the word belief or believe, right? It has the word lie inside it, right? And I love little bits of wordplay, like, you know, you can either believe what I'm about to say, or you could think it's a lie. And then I look like the letters fading back, and in my head I can see it. I've not done it, but I can see that, right? And so then when I'm looking at that word, I'll go, wow, there's something there, and I'll make a little note of it. And then the years go by, and then you end up, I show this all the time, but you end up with this. Do you know what I mean? And this is my notes. Like it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. I've got thousands and thousands of things that I never really talk about. And so my inspiration there is, it might be that I'm walking down the road or there's a piece of graffiti and it'll say something that's profound, and then I'll make a note of it and I'll sit there and go, oh, that's weird. But I have this weird tendency to look at everything the other way around, right? So like I was telling you earlier about, instead of like hypnotists will like take a memory away from somebody.
And you want to put the opposites,
like is it not more profound to give somebody that's got dementia the gift of being able to remember something? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I look at it like that, and it's like there was a scene in the Goonies, and I think it's a really interesting scene where Lip, I think they call him Lip, but Corey Feldman, he takes a coin back. I think it was Corey Feldman. It might not be. Don't quote me on that. But the scene's a very beautiful scene where they end up underneath a wishing well. And he picks up a coin and he's like, I'm taking this back because my wish never came true. You know what I mean? And I love like, but I really love like the symbology of that, like this idea of a wishing well and throwing something in instantly. Like when I'm thinking about a routine, instead of going up to somebody and saying like, oh, if you could wish for anything, could you think about what it'd be? And then saying it, it's like, you know, imagine sitting down at a wishing well and just waiting for somebody to throw a coin in, and then that becomes part of something. You stand up at that point and you say, you know, I made a wish that I think's just come true. I threw a coin in here and said that I wish that I could read somebody's mind. Would you be happy with me trying to guess what you just wished for? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So your wish, the coin that you threw in, is that you wanted to read somebody's mind, and then you've sat and waited for somebody to throw a coin in, make a wish, but they're already at the point of making that wish now, and then you stand up and say, I think my wish is about to come true if you'd be a part of that. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, and that might be born out the back of, and then if I get it wrong, like I roll my sleeves up and I reach in and I take the coin back out and I say, I'm taking this back because my wish didn't come true. Do you know what I mean? Like the visual, I'm just making this up as I'm going along, but the visual of that have been inspired from watching something from the Goonies. So what I do is every time anything strikes me, and it doesn't matter what it is, it could be a word that comes out of somebody's mouth or a sentence that just in some way touches me, like, and it doesn't have to, it excites me. It could be a joke, you know, a really weird story, and this is gospel truth. Like I flew over to Ohio and I ended up in Yellow Springs. And speaking of Corey Feldman, you know, I was driving Corey Feldman round in the back of a car that we'd taken. I've gone out to Yellow Springs. He's in the back of this car, and I end up at Dave Chappelle's private bar in Ohio, and I get invited with the production that we're with to Dave Chappelle's house for dinner. Right, so this amazing comedian that I've seen my entire life, I go to his house for dinner, and we'd just had a 20-second conversation about creating jokes. and he asked me my opinion on a joke, and I said, I think it'd be really interesting to create a joke, like one from the perspective that you told years ago, and now you've aged the same. And he's like, that's interesting. And he chooses to sit across from me at dinner. So there's like 20 of us, and we sat across from each other. And I'd been earlier looking at these poems that if you read them one way, it's like a negative poem.
Yeah.
But then you read it backwards word for word. It's like a palindrome. You read it backwards word for word, and it's a positive, right? And it were like the way that you view this perfectly represents the way that you view the world.
Yeah.
So you could choose to read it either way, you know what I mean? And you could choose to whether you want to accept that it's happy or sad. And I said to him, wouldn't it be interesting to tell a joke, but you tell it one way and it's funny to one group of people politically,
and it's offensive to the
others, and then you read it completely backwards, but now it's funny to this political group but completely offensive to that, right? And then it's like, and the joke is about the fragility of politics, right? You know, like, and you can open it up with, you know, my granddad always told me to never speak about politics, religion, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm going to do all three of those in one joke.
Yeah.
Right. So, but then he offends every group, but by telling it from the different perspectives, he then appeases every group simultaneously. And it's the same words, just rearranged, right? And he sat there and he were like, now that's interesting. And I'm like, you know, like, and so, but that little interaction there was me saying something about a palindrome or this idea of reading something forwards and then backwards that I'd seen as a poem. And then I'll take that. And for him, he might make that into a joke. And if he does, that's incredible. But what it also taught me is that, like, okay, right, I'm going to show you a mentalism effect. So let's say I go out and film something, and I haven't done this, but I would do. And you watch it, and it's incredible. And then I drop it on you that what you just watched is everything that happened backwards, and now again forwards, and you see it from a completely different perspective, right? So that'll come from there. Like I was watching, I think it's Mariana Abrovovich, or Marina Abrovovich, and she did this thing called The Power of Silence.
Oh yeah.
If you've not watched it. Go and watch it. So go to YouTube, type in The Power of Silence, and then just type in art gallery, and it'll come up. And you know, it's well worth a watch. And now, like I say, the names elude me because there's all this stuff packed into my head all the time, right? But like, I'll watch that, and then I'll go, right, this is two people. Anybody who ever tells you mind reading doesn't exist, watch that and watch the conversation they have with each other without saying a single word, right? And then that'll inspire me, right? And then I'll go and I'll sit and I'll go, okay, if mind reading were real, this is what it looked like. Like this so how do I get into this? She has an art installation. Everybody's turning up to sit with her in silence, and they know that that's part of the process. So she already has the framework of that exists in a building, at a table, series of chairs. So then my first question is, how do I replicate that environment, real world? How does somebody find themselves part of that situation? That's the puzzle, right? That's the puzzle aspect. And then I'll sit and work that out. But yeah, it's like I might sit down, but I can't speak. So when I sit down, it's not like I can sit there and go, if you want to experience something, come and take a seat.
No, yeah.
So I have to then find a way to get, and I'll sit. And I might film myself, and this is something I have filmed, right? But
movie theater before the movie comes on, and you everyone's waiting, and it's in silence, and then you go on the stage and do.
That's it. So it's like this is the bit, right? So it's like finding a way to find myself into that situation. So ultimately, instead of me taking the magic to them, sometimes it's nice to set up the framework where they find themselves walking in and sitting down and becoming a part of my world, right? And that come from watching The Power of Silence. So next time you listen to a song and it makes you feel a certain way, pick out the sentence that's pulling on your heartstrings, or that makes you think to yourself, you know, wow, that's an incredible sentence. Like let's look at, you know, Stereophonics, 1,000 Trees. The line, it only takes one tree to make 1,000 matches, but it only takes one match to burn 1,000 trees. Right? And like, what a profound line. So like, then that I'll bank that, and there'll be one time that I think about, like, how does that metaphorically represent something? And then that'll turn into something. Do you know what I mean? And like, look at everything backwards. So everything that you've been taught.
Reverse engineering.
Yeah, well, just like, for example, we talked about the hypnotist taking the memory. What's it like to implant one? Like now, if we know it implanting one, where would this be the most profound?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like then okay, we've got that, and then we're talking about memories. Now I'll go and research like interesting questions relating to memories. And so if I asked you, if you were to choose between keeping every memory you've made until today and never being able to make a memory again, or erasing every single memory you've ever made and only being able to make memories from today, which would you choose? Right? It's like a profound question, and it's like in 30 seconds, everybody goes, "Ooh, that's a deep question." And the ones that really make that noise, they're experiencing what I consider mentalism, right? And they're experiencing their minds doing backflips. And now when you pick one of them out of the audience and you have them think about a memory, everybody knows now how important that memory is because they felt the weight of that question.
Mm-hmm.
So that process, start to finish, that's a good way to look at it. It's right. Okay, what's this? How is this profound? What's the profound question? And even if at the most basic level I do a memory divination now, the audience understands the power of that. Yeah. And so that's my thing. It's like, is it a piece of music? If I hear a line on television, if I see a piece of graffiti, if I watch an art installation, is there a video on YouTube? I'm watching something and it goes viral. Like look at the Bloody Mary videos where people looked into a mirror and just said Bloody Mary 3 times in a line, in a row. And it's like, what is it that drew people to that? Symbolically, a mirror is a beautiful thing. So that I'll go, right, what do I want to do with mirrors? And then I learn about how in certain cultures they cover mirrors up to stop trapping souls when they're leaving. Like in Feng Shui, you don't want to ever put 2 mirrors across from each other, or you might get, your soul might be trapped, or you might be trapped. So now, if you're going to do like a stuck foot routine in hypnosis, imagine setting 2 mirrors up, and as somebody walks through them, they get stuck. Do you know what I mean? But instead of filming their reaction the way you normally see it, imagine filming it in a way that you see the mirror looking into this mirror, looking into the reaction. So now you've got an inception where you see the directorially, the moment that they're trapped, and you're watching the reaction on their face, like super close, but from this mirror into this mirror into them, right? So now the audience are breaking that fourth wall, they're getting the feel of this moment existing, right? And it's and in mentalism with products, you can't do that. It's like you could say to somebody, here's how you stick somebody to the floor. Yeah. Here's how you stick someone to the floor, right? But here's now a logical frame that visually this is interesting, and this moment here where it's this mirror into them visually represents the feeling of being trapped, right? And it's like I'm interested in capturing that thing there for me is and so yeah, so to answer your question, that's what inspires me, and there's nothing worse. And it's, I think social media, it's making and breaking mentalism at the same time, right? And what I mean by that is this, and I have nothing against content creators. A lot of my good friends are content creators. I've got friends that have millions of followers and ones that have got a few followers, right? But they all do one thing in common because they know it gets views. It chops to a video where you see some girl that's got barely any clothes on, and then they'll turn around and they'll go, think of a memory for me, and they go, okay, and they go, this is a memory of you with your dad in X, Y, and Z, and then the girl goes, no way, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'm done, and then boom, it's less than 30 seconds, 45 seconds long, and they're gone. And I say to them, so like, why is it that you're filming that? Why do you want to film that? And their answer is a very fair one. It's easy for me to consistently post this stuff. Yeah. But it's like, you think about the greatest things that you've ever experienced in your life, right? So I counter that with this. It's like, would your favorite food still be your favorite food if you had it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And then had it for supper as well. Would your favorite food be that if that's the only food that you could eat, right? Like, would Christmas be as special as it is, or any holiday, if it happened every day of the year? If your birthday were every single day, would we even celebrate it? Do you know what I mean? Would the person that you love the most be the love of your life if every person were exactly the same, right? And it's like
fundamental questions.
That's it, and that's why I think those formats for me are bad, because I wouldn't want to air what I could capture every day. I wouldn't want it, right? And that's it, and that I almost feel that the product side of stuff is that. It's like it is my outlet, it's my business, and it's put me in positions I'm totally thankful for, to put me into positions where I'm working on television shows and live shows and talent shows. It's give me that platform. So I'd never take it away. I understand why they're doing it, but I'm not inspired by that, and I'm sick of it. I've lost love for mentalism. Like I really have. I've lost, for me, I hate asking somebody to think of something and then revealing what it is. I hate it, right? It's because it's a game of cat and mouse.
There's no goal to that.
That's it. So this person here that's selling products and that is me, that's my business. I love that because I find interesting ways to do it, but what I love there is the method of doing that, selling the method on how to do that. I love the puzzle behind finding the method. I love finding the new ways to do it. I love creating the scripts. I love the business of selling it, and I love that people enjoy it. Right? I love that. That's me. This person who loves mentalism, and mine hates that.
Despises that part of
I hate it. Right. So it's a really hard internal conflict that I have to face, right, all the time, because I'm so in love and passionate about this that there's two sides to me where I have to go against my own morals on both sides, and there's no middle ground, right? There's no middle ground. It's like a total two separate personalities doing two separate things, right?
Yeah.
So back to the passion stuff. If you're watching this and you want to be inspired, like just try it, right? There's no better way to find your character and be you than to make your art represent all the things that you found profound. Right? The things that touched you, the things that made you feel a certain way, because guess what? All of a sudden they have character now, because what's going to inspire you is going to be different to what inspires me. What makes you stop in your tracks is going to be different to what makes me stop in my tracks. Do you know what I mean? All I've got very good at, and I'd say I'm very good at it, and it's, I'm very passionate about it, is finding those little things, like watching a reflection of a reflection to see a reaction. Finding like knowing that if like the moment, like, for example, I'm not going to mention what it is, but finding a way to do, and I showed you a video of somebody where I'm doing like a PK style sequence, but finding the perfect person that for me makes sense that it works on. Who better than this person? You know what I mean? It feels real, and I don't need to do anything else. And like look at it and go and say to yourself, like, okay, we're going to do a PK routine. Let's say we're doing a PK whisper. We know that we're going to whisper in one person's ear and somebody else is going to hear it. I always say to myself, okay, like, what context is this beautiful in? And like, imagine that in a library. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Where you're not allowed to speak, and the only way you can communicate is by whispering. But then you get that beautiful moment at the end where this person reacts, and the lady behind the counter, or the guy behind the counter, or the person behind the counter stands and turns and goes, shh. You know what I mean? And then that's the last scene. It's like you've got your scene entrance, you've got your reason for the quiet, but now in my head I go, right, okay, well, wait a minute. If I can't talk to set this up, because I don't want to say to the person, excuse me, I don't want to do that. How do I do it? So imagine now you see this little beautiful moment where you're looking round, and then you write in a little note and you fold it up and you slide it across the table, and the person picks it up, and the camera comes round the back, and it's like, if you want to play, write your so do you want to participate, yes or no? And they write it and send you it back, and then you see the little, and you're passing notes between yourself, and you say, quietly get up and come and sit next to me. So now they quietly get up and they come and sit next to you, and now you flip over the piece of paper and you say, point to somebody you'd like to communicate with in this room. So they point to somebody over the way, and now we write, close your eyes, or whatever. I mean, I'm just making this up, but all of a sudden now think about, well, this is now taking on this form of, we're in a library, we know we need to be quiet, there's this beautiful little shiftiness of passing backwards and forwards notes. This gets set up. You want to pass a message to that person over there? Okay, it's easy to do that. Now, on the way in, it's please switch your cell, and I print a sign that says, this library is a no cell phone zone. Please switch off your mobile phones on the way in, and like we this is a quiet zone, right? So now I get a couple of shots and see people, and I point out, I stand there, I get one of my team to stand there with an eye-vis on that says to people, if you're going to come in, you have to switch your phones off. So now we've got footage of people turning their phones off on the way in, right? So now the sign that we've just printed seems like it's from that library, but nobody else, it's their reality because they don't know it's not. And again, I'm just making this up as I'm going along, but you can see how my process of being inspired works. So now I've got the visual shot of seeing this sign. You see the public library, you know where we are. Right, you see, there's a voiceover of me talking about books. As the camera starts to come into the doorway, all of a sudden the voiceover becomes a whisper. I have to be quiet. And you're sort of leaning in now. The viewer at home is leaning in and understands it's a quiet piece. It comes in. This is not a mobile phone. And you see me shut my phone off. You see other people shutting their phones off. We go in. There's no mobile phones in sight, which then sells the illusion that this must be the case because everybody in there's turned their phones off. We're now secretly passing notes backwards and forwards. Already, this is more interesting than just think of something. Here it is. Right? You know what I mean? And then it's you want to communicate with that person over there. And then the note says, well, you can't text them because your phone's off. Try this instead. Whisper in my ear and watch their face. And then they whisper and all of a sudden you see the person like look over. And I wait and go, come here. And they come over and I go, I just write, did you hear a whisper? And they're like, fucking yes. And I'm like, write down the word that you heard whispered. And they write it down. And then this person goes, what the? And says it really loud. And then you've got like 3 or 4 people just look up in the library at the same time. Then the librarian goes, shh.
You seem to have like a very storyboard kind of way of imagining things.
Yeah, I mean, that's so rough. So what I've just said out loud there is so rough. It's me just making it up now. But what I'll do is then I'll take that and I'll refine it and chisel it away and go, right, what's the fastest way to represent this? How do I say what I want to say the fastest? How am I going to make this sequence of the note passing fun for the viewer at home? Because there's no sound, right? But like now, is my lead in as a mind reader? Do I hear thoughts? Is that my thing? If I do hear thoughts, when you walk into a library, this is what you hear. When I walk into a library, this is what it sounds like, and it's like overwhelming. And now I use the audio to represent that. So I'm building this now. You can see my process of building. Do you know what I mean? And it's like all those things. And if you said to 99% of mentalists, you're going to go into a library, what are you going to perform? They'd go, book test.
Yeah.
It's too easy. That's the first thing that you'd think of. And if it's the first thing that you think of, dismiss it and get rid of it.
No, definitely,
Yeah, what makes a lie? So now I know that that's the environment. I know I want to do something with whispers. I go, where would the place be that I'd whisper? A speakeasy? Do you know what I mean? Like I have this, so I just mentioning a speakeasy, that just came into my head then. What happens at a speakeasy? The door opens, what's the password? You can't come in without the password. So imagine turning up to a speakeasy and you knock on the door and they say, what's the password? And you go, what do you mean password? And they're like, the password to get in. So the next guest's coming down, just before they get there, you don't know the password. So you read this dude's mind and then it goes, look, I've got to go. And you go, okay, no worries. And now you knock on the door again. He opens it. He goes, password. And you say the password, the door opens and you're in, right? Like, again, my brain's just making these things up now, right? In the heat of the moment. But that guessing a password now thematically makes sense at a speakeasy on the door that's going to open and go in, right? Now we have to be quiet in there. So maybe we're going to do something based on based on whispers, based on being quiet. And like, now I think about this note passing and I go, okay, wait a second here. Imagine, like, this is interesting. We're in a bar now, so the settings change from a library. In a bar, what's the purpose that this character, this guy that I'm going to meet, is out for? Is he there to pick somebody up? Well, is this now an interesting way to try to get this person's attention? And then we see at the end of it, she offers to buy, or he offers to buy, or they offer to buy each other a drink. Do you know what I'm saying? So like my brain works like that. And it's like, so if you want to do this same thing, find what's profound to you, and like find something that makes you stop in your tracks, a word, a quote, whatever. Find a plot that really resonates with you. And then go to yourself, okay, like if it's whispers, where would it be natural to whisper? Right, all right. So now if I know that the rule that I've set myself is that we have to whisper, how can I talk without talking? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the way to do it? Like, how do I...
Like in the process, you have like a bullet point of objectives.
That's it. But I set myself rules based on the environment. So if you know that the environment's a non-smoking environment, and you know that the routine involves cigarettes, it's just a ridiculous example, but how do you find a way to do the same? How do you find a way to bring that in, or the ethos of that, in a place that you're not allowed to use it? So we know we're not allowed to talk. So, okay, can we pass notes? But all of these things are really visually appealing.
Yeah.
And that's where I get my passion from. It's not, what can I say without saying too much? And I know I'm talking now a lot, but in those moments, I don't talk. And I think watching people like Teller,
yeah,
it's very good for that. You know, spend some time watching mime artists, and spend some time, if you're doing something that's about not speaking, then don't look at mentalists and magicians that don't speak. And I know I give you an example of Teller, but he's a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely.
But move on to people there's retreats where people literally don't say a word and stare at each other. You know, find documentaries on people that have profound gazes. Look at visualization. Look at like gazing, eye gazing. Look into that. Look at hypnotic inductions that use just the eyes, and look at people doing that. Spend some time looking at the way that couples give each other a cursory glance and they know what each other's thinking without saying a word, and learn to mimic that with your face, right? Because there's nothing more earnest than that. And those little facial expressions are really things that inspire me. And so that's number one. And I'm going to try to speed the rest up because that were a long. That's the way to get good results. Think about what's going to cause the most chaos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's it. Be disruptive. Art is disruptive.
It has to be. Or you need the radar, especially today. There's like an overwhelming everything is fighting for our senses and our attention these days. So to find something that just like breaks away from the common,
that's it. And that's it. And I think that's the rule. That's sort of my ethos. And that's all my passion stuff's like that. Everything is, and it's not thought out at 9 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a full-time job living inside my head. It's like I honestly, the only time that I stop thinking is when I'm eating. And if anybody who's ever sat and had a meal with me, I gaze into space. I literally just zone out, and I'm like that. I'm like literally look like I'm not human.
But are you able to put on, let's say, your blinders and be in one idea until completion? Or like, let's say if you get up to get a glass of water and you saw a pen, like, oh shit, that thing with the pen, and I remember now, and then you just
I won't have a glass of water.
You'll stay on that thing?
Yeah, like literally until I've got to. I do this thing where I call it treating myself, right? And so if I'm ever going to film anything that's passion based, or I'm writing anything that's passion based, if I'm hungry, even at my heaviest weight, until I've achieved a certain thing that I think this is a milestone in moving forward.
Yeah, it's non-stop.
Because what happens is if I break off after page 1 and then go and eat something I want to eat. What I'm doing there in my head, I believe that I'm rewarding myself for breaking off. Okay.
Okay. So you're adding an extra layer to that.
Yeah, that's it. I'll reward myself for breaking off. So I'll literally wait until I think this is a milestone. Oh,
then I'm going
to treat myself now to something, and then I feel good about it, and I know that next time I'm going to be rewarded if I complete something. And that's how I trained my brain to get into that. But that doesn't mean that there's not a million things that are not finished. Because there are, there's a million things.
For sure, well, like you just said, that's it. But I find it I'm wondering, well, you seem to be able to be proficient enough where you can sit down and say, this needs to get out.
That's product.
Yeah.
That's different. And that's, there's a lot of other decisions that have to aid that. So it's like I did a year last year, a full year on set consulting. And I came home maybe 2 or 3 times. It wasn't a lot. And I were home very short periods at times. And then in between I had Blackpool. And when you sign up for a contract-based consultation that's over 12 months, it ends up, it's not financially as rewarding as people think it is, right? You make more money doing a 9-to-5 job, and that's not a joke. That's like...
No, I know.
It's like
people don't like that.
Yeah. So short stop consultations are always better because you're doing 1 or 2 days. You could do them from home and you're getting paid good money. When somebody's offering you like 6 months to a year, not financially good at all. Like I could put one product out and probably earn what I were earning in 4 months, 5 months. And it could be one day filming in my studio. And that's not to say that products make a lot of money. It's not. I'm saying that it's difficult to create a business from this stuff. So this side of me, which is the product side, I understand that, you know, I'll give you a good example. So January, February, March, and April. So January, February, March, April, 4 months this year. I didn't earn a penny, but I were consulting, I were paying my own expenses, and the companies that I worked with, I'm not going to name, they've gone back on our contractual agreement. So I didn't earn anything for those So that's 3-4 months of my life where I haven't been paid. And I paid to go stay in the Airbnbs, the flights, the trains, thousands out in expenses, and I'll never get that back. Now it's easy
beyond that, because the time that you lost, you could have been doing
work
something productive. Okay.
Right. So that's it. So now I look at it and go, I never do anything solely for the money. So I'm not like, for me, I don't put something out to go. I don't go, right, I need £1,000 now, so I'm gonna
whatever
put this
happened.
Out. I don't do that. I don't need to do that because I've got enough people that want me to consult for them. I literally have it backed up to the point where I'm deciding what consultation jobs I take. And like, there's so many people out there that are wanting to move into social media, wanting to move into TV, wanting to move into this. There'd be enough for me to do that all year round. But if it's not a project that I feel I can help them best on, I'll say this person's better for you. I don't even do that financially. You know what I mean? I don't do that for the money. But that's not to say that the money doesn't play a part in it. So, for example, if I know that there's things that I really do want to release and I've got time to myself and I now have the time to put this out, like I'll sit down and I will see it through to the end. Do you know what I mean? I'll see it through, and then there's a lot of time gone into that, and then the financial rewards go towards funding those passion projects, to go towards my giving to my family, they go towards bills that inevitably need paying, because so when I'm away from home, nothing stops. I still have to put food in my kids' mouths. I still had to put clothes on their back, you know, like my son's just finished school. Like, that's how old he is now. He's just finished school, and he wanted a really nice suit to go. He needed the ticket to go to there. Then he needed to pay for the meal that were there. Then he needed the money for drinks. And then he needed, you know, X, Y, and Z. And then it's like, and then, you know, I've got my other son. His mum's like, oh, you know, it'd be nice to go on a family holiday. Like when can we go on a family holiday? And it's like, okay, then I've got to take this kid and this kid and this, and family holidays are £10,000. You know what I mean? So it's like, for a good one, because you're not giving them anything.
Listen, families. I've got 3 kids.
Yeah, and you're not giving, because I'm not there. £10,000 probably sounds like a hell of a lot, but when you realise that because I'm not there, I wasn't there for a year, and I'm only seeing them every so often. That's only collecting all that money up where I would, and time is as important as well. So it's like, if I'm taking this time away to film this, to put out, they need to be financially rewarded, and so do I, and that's it. So that's a different dedication. That's a dedication to doing it because I know that inevitably my personal life would be better for doing that.
Yeah,
it'd be better for doing that because it affords me time with my family.
Well, speaking of time and family and priorities and stuff, maybe we'd like for phase 2, where we say it's incubation. So there's kind of like a duality that I'm feeling, because if you want to be able to completely immerse yourself in the thing and have the blinders, you kind of have to put a bit of a limit, because there's life goes on in the family life, and you have to. So like, how do you structure, let's say, for when you want to like develop the ideas, like for?
Again, I don't. You know, like I'd go as far as saying that I'm openly probably a very selfish person, I you know, like, I bear no bones about that. Like, magic and mentalism, or magic, I'll put it all under the umbrella of magic with a K. It's probably easier.
Yeah.
It was my first love, and it came before everything came into my life. And the way that I sort of see it is that if it wasn't for magic, then everything would have been different. The path of my life would have been different. But everything that my kids have are as a result of me dedicating my. right? So I'm like, for example, my family know, and then when I say my family, I mean my two sons,
yeah,
and also they have different mums, but their mums, they know that those children don't have as good a life that they have if I'm not dedicating my time to that solely. So it's not for selfish reasons, but it is selfish.
No,
right? And so like, so they know that
the price to pay for their happiness and stability and
so they get that, and I don't do it. Like I said, I don't do it for me anymore. It's not like that. It's like they benefit.
Need to be compensated,
You know what I mean? And so yeah, there's not really a switch off. Like if I'm on a plane, that's what I'm doing. If I'm driving, that's what I'm doing. Like the only time, meal times, like the rule that we had in the house when Kim used to live here, and that's my ex-partner, my youngest son's mother. She'd say like, not at the dinner table. Like that's the only time, not at the dinner table. I mean, like, but if you're watching a film, I'm sat with a pad.
Yeah.
But she understands that, and I think that she also understands that, like, I'm quite obsessive in that area, and that takes precedent over a lot. And that doesn't mean that I don't love my children as much as I love my magic and mentalism, but it just means that
it's not something kind of love anyway.
Yeah, that's it. They understand. You know what I mean? They understand. So they're very understanding, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that they're understanding, and I love that they're as understanding as they are. So it never switches off. Like it never. Like straight after this call. Like after this call with you, like if I told you my evening, so as soon as I've done this call with you, I'm gonna get off of here. Like I've got my team are here at the minute. They've flown in from different places. You saw them setting up this background for me before we started. I've planned some filming stuff. I've got my whole day mapped out for tomorrow. I've got to get my stuff that I'm wearing set for tomorrow. I've wrote down the times. All the cards are cleaned off. The lights have got to be fixed and ready. The microphones have got to be prepared. The SD cards and cards have got to be formatted. Then then I'll have a quick break for food, and it's probably the only time I'll switch off. Then I've got a call with somebody in Los Angeles. Then I have a consultation call that starts in the evening to plan a new series that I start from. And I today, like literally, I'm not gonna go into it as I'm not going to go into who it is that I'm doing it for, but I got a message today that were like, and I'll read it just to show you, and I still haven't responded to this message, so this gives you an idea of how busy and backed up my day's been. And it's just like, hello mate, I hope you had a good day. We are planning scheduling for the series. Are you pretty free for the summer up until the end of September? Any holidays or work commitments that are worth noting? If so, when? Because if we need you for a shoot, we can work around it. So it's like, I've not even responded to that. And that's somebody that wants me to work on a series right up until the end of September. But I know as soon as I respond to that message, I've mentally committed to not doing anything till the end of September.
Yeah.
So this is my point. It's like, and then I'll finally get to bed at 1 o'clock, and then I'll go and I'll watch YouTube, and I'll make notes on my phone about things that like stand out and appeal to me, or little sentences or things that reflect upon the day. I might make a couple of personal text messages at that time, which won't be responded to until tomorrow. And then I'll finally get to bed at maybe 3-4 o'clock. And then I'm back up at 6-7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And then it'll be a day's filming. So it never shuts off. It's like, you know, those people that have tinnitus.
Just to say, like, how long have we been on and off until the moment to like a year? Easy for sure, you know.
That's it. And it's like this now again. It's hard for me to you know tinnitus. Do you know what tinnitus is?
Yeah.
So I'd say that's exactly what I'm experiencing with this. Yeah, it's just a constant ringing in my head.
Yeah.
And I'll probably stop when I cease to exist. You know what I mean? And it's like, but I've dedicated myself to it. So I'm all in.
Meditate by any chance?
Pardon?
Meditation?
Do you know what? So this is not a joke. I have a very good friend, a guy called Bill Brunel. And Bill Brunel is known as the Magic Samaritan.
Okay.
So everybody credits like Paul Zenon and David Blaine for being like the pioneers of street magic. But I'm telling you for a fact that Bill Brunel, and he's an older gentleman, was the first person to do it. Like he, and there's a reason for me mentioning him, but he would go, and they called him the Magic Samaritan because what he'd do is he'd go to the rough neighborhoods in America, travel around, and he'd share his magic with these kids that never got to watch television or never got to see it, and he was called the Magic Samaritan. And he did the eulogy at Slidini's funeral. So this guy's pretty well known in that field. But he was also the man that brought Maharishi Yogi, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, to the Western world.
Okay.
So he was the guy that he flew to India.
Yeah.
He did transcendental meditation with this guy, and he then brought Maharishi Yoga into the Western world and popularized it. So if you think that you know that the Beatles have been to see this guy, that's as a result of Bill, right? Like he's, and I hope you don't mind me saying that, but he doesn't speak about it. It's you just have to see his notes and his library and his bits to know it. So he sat there and he told me what transcendental meditation could do for me. Yeah. And so I've got the guy that
for days.
and I've still not managed to commit to it. And that were 10 years ago, you know, like, and I've still.
You would be great.
I can't do it.
People, producers do it.
I can't. Do you know what? I can't do it. Like honestly, it's like I always thought I had no fears.
David Lynch.
Yeah. But I think it's a fear. I honestly think it's a fear. Like I have no. You put a spider in my hand, I'm not scared of it. You put me into to heights, I'm not scared of it.
An isolation chamber? No,
I think that. Do you know what? You put me in a ring with. I promise you this. You put me in a ring with Tyson Fury. I won't be scared of him. I'd be anxious, but I'd do it. I'd get in there. Bothered. Like I'm not scared of absolutely anything. But the idea of being on a cruise ship for 4 days without getting off, or I don't know how a cruise works. I won't be trapped out at sea on a something. Like the idea of that's why I don't think prison would be good for me. And that's probably the only reason that I've not gone to prison, right? Is because
confinement.
Yeah, like it's just that being
the confinement.
But then again, listen honestly, if I am having a day off, I will spend it in one room, laid on a bed. Doing as little, and I very rarely do that, but I'm still thinking, I'm still doing everything. But I love that. I love laying in bed just doing it.
Daydreaming, like
it's still like work related, but so maybe it's the irrational fear of nothing. And when I say nothing, I don't mean I'm not scared of anything. I mean the fear of just experiencing nothingness.
But just now, like that now. There's no back, there's no the front. It's just there.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Like I don't know what it is. But just the idea of closing my eyes and having a mantra, repeating it to myself, or whatever you do. I don't know what you do, but sitting there and trying to find that inner peace. I honestly think that inner peace would probably destroy me. I don't know why. I really don't know why.
There's a routine in there. There's a routine in there for sure now. Like I'm taking notes on the side.
That's it. Do you know what? So so there is no incubation. There's no isolation. There's no
And you touched on the eureka. You've even touched already on phase 3, the eureka thing. Like you dive into that thing. It's like you have your blinders on and you go in and.
This is it. So phase 3 is the easiest one to answer of all, and it's just dedication.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just consistency.
Yeah, that's it. Just dedicate yourself to something and stick at it.
Yeah.
And the eureka moment there, that wow, is that you'll realize that time pays itself back tenfold.
You agree that it's not just like with it could be sports, or you're playing an instrument and then all of a sudden bang.
It could be anything. Like it literally can be anything. It's if you dedicate yourself to it, and so. You know, I've seen it a lot, and don't get me wrong, like, I've been interested in things when I was younger that I didn't stick at. I didn't dedicate myself to it, right? But then I don't even know what it was, but it was just, you know, like there's things that I just didn't stick at. So like, you know, but when you look at it, and I'm sure everybody's had something that they started and didn't finish. Everybody has, right? But then, you know, it could be roller skating as a kid or skateboarding or whatever. It could be anything. But then I ask you this, like, what has that thing given you back? And the answer is nothing. And the reason it's giving you nothing back is because you're not giving enough of yourself to it.
Yeah. You get what you put in.
That's it. So now I realize that and I understand it, and you know what I mean. I get it. So
Yeah. Like relationships, I think.
that's it, and that's my biggest problem is that like I know 100% hand on my own heart that it's not. I don't think it'd be fair for me to be in a relationship with somebody because I can't offer them the time they require from me. Right, and that's
there's all
it.
kinds of relationships, but I think that I get a sense that you're a little bit of a romantic, and that if you want to be there, you want to be all there.
Yeah, well, do you know, like the whole romantic side of me is that I find it as equally difficult as people find to understand my life. I find it difficult to understand theirs, and let me give you an understanding of what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like let's say that we take a potential person that I'm dating. I'm just making this up as I go along, but I'm speaking hypothetically. And let's say that they work in teaching.
Yeah.
Now I know that as soon as they get into that classroom at 8:30 in the morning, they can't answer their phone to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they want to set a good example for the children so they don't get the phone out during that lesson. Then the next lesson comes in. So I know that they're not available till say 11 o'clock. But then at 11 o'clock, there's a kid that's misbehaved. So now they're having to sit and they're having to do a detention with this kid. And now I understand. I get it, right? So then it comes to lunchtime. They have an hour to themselves. They might send me a quick text message, but then they're ready to go again. And then they get home and they've got stacks of paperwork. I understand it, right? But at 5 o'clock, they ring me and they'll say, right, I finished work now. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But so then I'll say to them, oh, I'm just editing at the minute. I'll like get back to you in a bit, or I won't text them back. So then 9 o'clock will come and they'll be like, I sent you a text message at 5 and it's now 4 hours later. What's going on? And I'll be like, well, you know, like I didn't manage to take a break. I've been so busy. I've been stacked. I've taken this call and this and this. And then what happens is, let's say that a friend of mine is having a go at me because I didn't get back to them. And then somebody's talking to me about not getting back to them about a certain thing. And then this person, this girl that I'm dating will say, it only takes 2 minutes to send me a message to tell me that you're busy. And I'm like, yeah, it does, but it only takes me 2 minutes to tell you that, but then I've got to tell this person that, and I've got to tell, and they go, well, you should prioritize the people in your life. And I'm like, yeah, but when you're creative and you're creating something, if you distract yourself for a little bit of time, then that result, it suffers. It doesn't become as target focused. It's like, it doesn't become as good.
I don't know if you get irritated with that, but that irritates me.
Well, when they say that to me, it does. So then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's go for breakfast tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Yeah. And they go, well, you know, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go for breakfast at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they'll go, you know, I can't do that. I'll go, well, let's go for lunch at 2 o'clock. But you know, I'm working. And I'll go, right, well, what? And I'll go, okay, so wait a second here. Like, because the framework that you reside in, 9 to 5, and everybody else resides in is 9 to 5. Yeah.
When you're available, everyone else has to be available.
Yeah, and that's it. But because the majority of people are, most people finish at that time. They're so used to knowing that, and then they'll go, yeah, but you run your own business. So because you run your own business, and then I go, okay, so let's stop a second here, right? So now
you're gonna get me going now, look.
And then what I do is I go, right. I take a step back and I go, okay. I'm like, when you set off to work tomorrow, where do you go to? And they go, school. And I go, right, I go, okay. And I'm like, do you own that building? And they're like, no. And I'm like, when you go in there, is it a mess or is it clean? Well, it's clean. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, and is there electricity and heating on? And they go, yes. And I'm like, right. Now the papers that found themselves into that building for you to write on, the notebooks and stuff, how did they get in there? Right, the whiteboards that were put on the wall and the walls that were painted, how did they get painted? And I'm like, right, every one of those jobs that are already there for you when you turn up at 9 o'clock, I've got to do myself.
You take it for granted.
That's it. All the things that you don't think about, I've got to do. Right? So I'll go like, it's me, I take myself to my business. Yeah. I'm the one that deals with my emails. I'm the one that has to deal with this.
You're a one-man show.
Yeah, that's it. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm like finding it a bit easier in the side of stuff cinematography wise, because I have a team now with me, like a small team, granted, but I have a team, and but still, all of that, I'm still the one that's setting up the cameras. I've had to pay for the cameras. I'm the one that's had to get the hard drives when something breaks.
Your head that's on the log. Even if you have all those people all around, it's you.
That's it, right? And that's it. So trying to explain to somebody that doesn't do what I do, they are so used to everybody else finishing around or thereabouts the time they finish. That's been their norm for as many years as they've worked. But then they meet somebody like me, and it's like I'll be filming on a Saturday when they're off.
Yeah.
And then I might go on a business trip on a Sunday. So
Anytime.
I can't. That's it. So I'm very upfront about that now with people, and people claim to be understanding. But I think it's difficult because they don't understand, and so the honesty is, I think I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic, but in that sense, it's difficult for people like us, like yourself, and anybody who's watching this probably has the same feeling that. There is, for them it's difficult. For me, it's difficult, and the eureka moment comes in seeing then the payoff of I have dedicated my time to. If I am gonna fall for somebody, I'll be as present and wholehearted as I can be. But the honesty is that they have to fit themselves into my life instead of me fitting myself into theirs. And it's really horrible to say, but until that jigsaw piece that fits next to me is perfect, I don't think that's something that's going to happen anytime soon. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to rush into it.
It's like, because people, let's say, I would say that we're more like marginal, like where there's less, of our personalities around, but people are drawn to that. I found an artist, he's so nice, I like, and I'm in love with him, blah blah blah. But they don't want to have the lifestyle that goes with it.
Well, that's
they're in love with that. They're charmed by that thing, but they want to control it because there has to be in a box for them to be able to manage in a certain way. So there's something that. But then again, if I say to you, Peter, okay, what happens if you get into a situation where you're in a relationship with someone who does the same thing as you? Well, so I don't think it's going to work as well.
I don't know. I know that to some degree, I think that there's similarities there, but I think it's like, at least that person, for me, the only gripe that I ever have is that the person doesn't understand that I can't text them when they expect me to text them. Yeah. That's it. That's the only gripe that I'd have. I'm quite patient because listen, when they're working at 9 o'clock, it doesn't bother me. When they're working at 10 o'clock, it doesn't bother me. If they're working for 2 weeks straight, it doesn't bother me. If they don't text me all day, it doesn't bother me. I've got to a point where I could only hold somebody up to the same standards that I'd hold myself up to, right? And that's it. Like I can only, if I don't expect them to get mad at me, for not, I won't get mad at them, right? So I think for somebody in our world, I think where I'd struggle with some, and I've dated people that are in our world. I'm not going to go into who, but I have dated people in our world, and it's the problems that I've had there is that when they're financially struggling, instead of doing something to fix it, they're hyper focused on. They don't, like I said, I've got that split personality where my passion is morally against my business is morally against my passion. Both of them have conflicting ideologies. Now I find that they're either one or the other. So they're either very business orientated, and if they're very business orientated, what I tend to get is you spend too much time dreaming about things that are X, Y, and Z. And if I spend too much time that's business orientated and they're passion orientated, you're spending too much time focusing on this and this. I don't find anybody that in my industry that's got that split personality where it's like they understand my dream and I understand theirs, and then we understand that there is financial responsibilities, and we've got to sort of look at it like a business as well. So basically, if I put a wig on and I fucking lipstick myself up and looked in a mirror, I'd probably be better dating myself, right? It's like maybe but then again,
I'm gonna stop this right here. Because I got a visual image, Peter, I am completely screwed.
So when do you know what? I've just sat and thought to myself, I can only imagine somebody tuning into this thinking, God, this guy he's just, but yeah, so this is like I say, most of the time I don't really talk about this stuff. I spend time talking about mentalism and people watch that, but I think the process of it's more interesting. The process of seeing the mind that is behind.
It's important that.
But yeah,
people don't realize this. Listen, we're in a day and age. Okay, we started in an age where we could go to a movie and see a 2-hour thing and deal with it. Then videos came along. The attention span, is going down to like a 2, 3, 4 minute process video. The whole artistic side of having long tracks like Pink Floyd, screw that because people won't take the time to listen. Then you scale that down to like social. I'm trying to find the love of my life and I'm gonna swipe. So you got like half of a second there to try and leave an impression on someone.
But even what you just said there, I think for me, and I probably filmed this now, I've said it, but I think for me is interesting, right? So what you just said there is interesting for me. So imagine I wanted to do a routine that were about blind dating. So what I do, set up a fake Tinder profile and it's got like a shocking photograph that you're going to stop on.
Yeah.
And in it is if you want to, and I don't know if it's swipe left or right, so excuse me if I get it wrong. But if you want to be part of an interesting social experiment that's mind reading,
swipe right,
swipe right. Yeah. So now they swipe right, and then they're in this inbox. And now what you do is say, right, this is going to be the weirdest thing. I'm going to give you one message. If you turn up, you turn up. I'll meet you under the clock at Waterloo Station at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And now this person doesn't know what you look like, knows nothing about you, but turns up out of curiosity. Now you do a routine that's basically a routine, and the cameras turn up, and it's about a first date or filming something to do with love. Right?
Yeah, blind dates.
But how interesting is that to see the person choose the experiment by swiping right?
Yeah, that could be very good.
You know
we're going to end up doing something together, Peter. Just calm down.
But do you see my point? And this is what I'm saying. So that's the way my brain works.
Non-stop. When you have a little link with it.
Yeah. You'll say something and then I'll go, right, okay, what does that fit into? How do I film this? What does it look like? What's the story? And then I create the story. I write it as if it's a piece of fiction and then I make it. Pardon?
Shakur.
No, who's that?
Singer, he's a hip hop artist. He was assassinated at the same time as the Notorious B.I.G. He had
Tupac. I thought you said.
Not the six pack. Not the six pack. The 2-pack.
No, I thought you said Matt Shakur.
No.
Yeah. So
he has an expression. It's realize.
Yeah, Machiavellian.
Yeah. So it's all like the way that it's written. It sounds the same way. But do you realize that people talk real lies? Yeah?
Well, that's it. This is it, and that's it. So yeah, so that's number 3. What was number 4?
4 is your exploration. So how do you cut it? Well, you already kind of went through that. Like, how do you cut away the fat?
I think with mine, it's just all been messed up and jiggled about because I struggle to articulately put myself in a box to answer 1, 2, 3, 4. But no, how do I cut it down? That's the hard bit. So the best piece of advice, am I allowed to have one explicit in here? Is that
whatever you want?
Okay, so one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got given were by Lloyd Barnes. And Lloyd said to me, he goes, just don't shit in your own bathwater.
Yeah.
And I thought, and what he meant by that, well, when you're editing something, you can look at something and go, this is the best 5 seconds bit of B-roll that you've ever filmed. He said to me, he goes, that's having a beautiful bath and then not wanting to get out to go to the toilet and shitting in it. Right? Because what you've got to do is you've got to, if you need the toilet that badly, you've got to get out of the bath and go. So trim that bit of footage down to the best 2 seconds.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so it's like, it hurts you.
Yeah.
Right? It breaks your heart to have to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're enjoying the bath, right?
Yeah,
it's like, but it goes, the whole purpose of the bath becomes irrelevant once you shit in it, right? And it's like it's a really silly way to look at it, but again, like I said,
it's design for me.
Yeah, and that's it. So simple things like that. So what I do is I take something, and I go right. I cut all of the meat off of the bone.
Yeah.
I cut it all off, so it's just a bone, and then I go right. I've cut it off now. What's the minimal amount I can put back on?
That is exactly what I try to do. I love doing that. It's like, let's say you have something and you take it apart and there's 10 pieces. Can I rebuild this with 9 pieces?
Yeah, that's it.
Why is that 9 piece so important? Like, okay, let's say 7 pieces.
If you're putting a car back together and you don't have three bolts left over at the end, you've done something wrong.
There's something there. I really like that.
Yeah,
like everything has a reason.
So well, and that's it. And so look at just to go off what you were just saying then. So you've seen the old thing with the pieces of chocolate where somebody takes one piece out and it's a full bar again and they take one piece out, right? It's like for me, I don't know why my brain's saying to me that old expression my grandma used to say to me, money doesn't grow on trees.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So now my brain's going there. Like based on you saying that, I'll go, oh, money tree, something there. What can we take away, and what can we take apart, rebuild, and it still have all the sum of its parts, even though one bit of it's gone, right? But then that one bit, that waste, I think, is equally as important as the bit that we've kept.
Yeah.
So what's profound in the waste? Like what's the bit that we've cut away, and what does that make, right? So
Yeah.
so it's that. So it's like he gave me that piece of advice. So what I do is I tend to strip it back as far as it can go, and then look at the best elements of it, put the best elements back, and then go, what are the bridges between these best elements? Which bits are necessary, and that's it for it to be like a story, and that's it. So that's the process of that. And that's the quickest answer I've done.
Yeah. So implementation. So getting it out there. Even doing it for yourself, let's say, versus telling it to someone.
That's it. And both people are different. So both sides of me are different. One of them is I want to share, and I want to give, and I want to, you look at this way. It doesn't matter what anybody says. Like you take mentalism. In the last 10 years, we've come further than we have in 100 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it's like the speed that we can access that information now, and the speed of the community that we've got. Like, yeah, I know that a lot of it can be toxic, and I'm always watching. Like I'm always looking, just when I'm scrolling through posts, as I'm just got 30 seconds to myself, I'll see there's another argument on the Magic Cafe, and I stopped looking at all that. I really don't care what anybody thinks about me. Look, art is there to be divisive. Mm-hmm. Art's there to ruffle feathers. If you're not ruffling feathers, you're not annoying somebody, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Do you know what my favorite thing is? My absolute favorite thing is those people that sit there and go, well, I don't know why he's getting recognition for that when I could do it better and I'm not getting recognition. But I love that. I love that because I'm there. Like, I think that when people watch me execute something, it seems like it's really simple. But a lot of the stuff that I'm doing there's a lot more that's around it that's been put into place to make it seem that simple. It could be one sentence that just feeds it in, and I'm watching it, and I look, and I used to get really offended by stuff like that. I used to get offended when people would say, so I had a really in this side, the product person, is a really interesting curve that I experienced. I'd put videos out, or I'd do Skype calls, and I'd do this crazy shit where I just guess stuff that people were thinking of, names, words, and I'd go down that rabbit hole, and people would post about it online, and then it'd be, yeah, but these are just his friends, or they're just stooges.
There's an excuse.
But I'd love that, right? I wouldn't at the time. I get offended by it, but now I love it. In magic and mentalism, the sort of way I looked at it, well, wait a minute. Imagine you were going to do like a flying lesson in a plane. Do you know what I mean? You get up in the air and they say, right, you could. You're learning, and the pilot says, right, you could take the sticks, and the plane dips, and then you pull it back up. They pull it back up, and they go, let's try this again, and it dips again. They're like, look, maybe we need to do a bit more theory before we go back up again. And you get out, and somebody says to you, how was it? And you go, you know what? It were more difficult than I could have imagined. I've got more appreciation for pilots than I have. But in magic and mentalism, when we can't explain something, instead of digging into why it worked, where it might be, how we could achieve it, we just go, must be a stooge.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to attack that than our own ego. Right, it's easier to discredit that than to discredit the fragility of discredit how fragile our ego is. Do you know what I mean? Like or how strong our ego is. Sorry, to discredit that, right? And so I used to get offended by that. I used to get offended by people putting posts. Does this guy ever shut up? I used to get offended by that. Now, I honestly don't care. Like I'm here. I'm doing these podcasts. My books, they sell. People want me to come and give lectures and talks. People want me to fly around the world and consult. I've got a team of people. I've got a family. I've got a good life. I've got a machine in my office. You know what I mean? I've got everything that I could want. I've got that. Obviously there's other things that I still want, but I've got everything. So it's like, and all that's come as a result of just doing it my way.
Yeah.
This is I'm choosing what I use as paints. I'm choosing what I want to paint on. I'm choosing what the subject matter is, and then I'm hanging it in a gallery.
Yeah.
And you get to come and look at it, and you could think it's art or not. You could go, what's this bit of rubbish? You know what I mean? What's this? Well, I don't care. And that's all right. Because, and so the curve was that, and then it was, this stuff only works for him. It's too bold. And then it was, okay, this stuff, it's great, but I wish he said less. And then it's, this stuff is incredible, but he talks too much in the explanations. this stuff's amazing. And it's like, and then all of a sudden it just became like everything that were happening 10 years ago, a lot of people latched onto and were like, oh, this, and then ran with it. And then all of a sudden, a lot of the things that were core principles and techniques. And I'm not saying that did anything to push magic and mentalism forwards. That's not what my claim is. But a lot of those techniques and principles are now staples and things that people use every day without even thinking.
Yep.
You know, like little stupid things like talking about, you know, whether you're a creative or an analytical person, you know what I mean? That like little things like that were never something. It were always just, I'm going to work this out, body language this, and body language that. And, you know, it were interesting to see that when I became interested in star signs, that became a hot topic. And it were really lovely to see that people were backing me and finding ways to do it themselves and investigating those plots. And like I say, yeah, I think in the last 10 years, certainly in my experience, and I'm sure that the old guard would probably have something to say about this, but I think that the amount of plots, not because of me, but because of the community, so vast now. The amount of techniques that we've got are vast. Like we have 50 ways to do any card at any number that we didn't before. We have 50 apps that will do something for us. We have 1,000 this and 1,000 that. And we've got the biggest and best library available to us. Do you know what I mean? Than ever before. And now with the growth of like artificial intelligence, that's going to grow even more. You know, it's like,
you see, let's say on closing words, like where would you see this whole going, let's say in the next 5-10 years?
I think what's going to happen is either somebody that we know, so somebody that it might be a prominent figure, or it might be somebody that's well known, or it might be somebody that's known. Either I hate saying the next Derren Brown because it's the worst thing. And like Derren Brown is just Derren Brown. It's like he doesn't need, but he's very psychology. It's like body language based, and that's that. But I think that somebody, and it might well be someone like Louis Laval or something like that, like or someone else, text. Like reimagines, recreates like the way that Derren did, like that movement became a thing. And like I think that is inevitable. I think it's got to be inevitable. Like the market is so open for it.
For sure.
It's like it's so open. You look at it this way. Tell me now who's got a television show doing mentalism. I mean one that were as popular as Derren's. Like nobody. Like who were doing it for years before Derren? Nobody. But like magicians, you've got Dynamo, you've got David Blaine, you've got people that are on TV that are prominent figures. You know what I mean? But in mentalism and hypnosis, you don't have that. So I think that one thing is that we've got,
because it was big productions and then big productions and then through that books. Like don't look for a Derren Brown trick to buy. Well, that's it. I mean, and that's it. So I think the next thing that's going to be is that somebody's going to come along, or somebody might already be there. And if it isn't somebody we already know, it's going to be somebody that we definitely don't know. Some young whippersnapper's going to come out and going to just have some imagination. Do you know what I mean? Something that look at things a way that we never dreamed about looking at it. It's going to be, it's going to come and, or they. I say he. That's very exclusive of me here, But yeah, somebody's going to come along, and I think they're gonna do good things, and I think they're going to do big things. I fear that the next thing that's going to be experimented with is, can robots do what we do? So it's like might be a full series about technology doing it. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like technology somehow does it better than we do it, and all of a sudden, then you're forced almost to go onto the personal connection level. Well, because a computer can't do that. They can't do the human side of things. Of course.
So so I think that's that. I think give it a few more years, books are going to be dead.
Oh,
honestly, like listen, I'll tell you, anybody that's watching this, just do this for me. Go to next time you're out in a social situation, ask somebody what the last book they read were.
Oh, but that's the thing. That's just society as
That's what I mean. And
oh my God, reading it. No.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like
it's a shame.
Yeah, it's upsetting, right? And that's so. I think that books are going to be gone. I think that everything's going to be, and I think that we're going to see a dip for a little bit. We're going to see a dip where nothing happens, and then something's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Something's going to happen and it's going to be big. And I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, monumental. I think that's a good one. But I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know where it's going to be or what's going to be next. But that's got to happen for the preservation of what we do. You know.
Yeah.
But this is it. Like, if you're watching this and you take anything from what I've told you, is don't be scared to be selfish. And if that means that you want to be selfish in love and everything else gets put to the side, do it. If you want to be selfish in your other careers, do it. Dedicate yourself to something. Watch, learn, read, absorb, become. And it's got to be a part of your identity. If it's not a part of your identity, you're a character playing an actor in your own life story, right? And that's not ever the way that things should be done. Don't be ashamed about understanding that everything comes at a cost. It's not free to go and film these passion things. It's not free to put fuel in a car, to do test books, to post things out, for things to go missing in the post, to R&D stuff. It takes time and effort, and it comes at the cost of the people around you. So don't be scared to say that what you do is a business. Mm-hmm. Don't be scared to want to be reimbursed for the time that you put into it. And when you put thousands of hours into something like I have, I can tell you now I'd earn better money doing something else.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the balance is relatively fair. You know, so that's that. Don't be scared to admit that you have internal conflicts and that sometimes the rules that you set yourself, for me, my passion projects, my rules can't be broken. My business side of me, it can be. There's compromises there where the two worlds might cross, but not so much. But that's it. Don't be scared to have two separate entities. And sit in an interview like this one and answer the question twice, both contradicting the other.
Yeah.
If it's you, it's you, right? You know what I mean? It's like, don't be scared to sit back and look at something differently, and don't be scared to take what somebody's done and you've been told this is the way it's done and it's always been done this way.
And then break it.
Flip it and look at the opposite way.
Yeah,
don't be scared don't be scared to take flack and heat for what you're saying. You know, to be truly considered something great, you have to do things that are disruptive. You have to shake up the norm. You have to look at things from other perspectives. You have to be willing to be criticized.
Yeah.
That's that. Don't be scared of wanting silence. Don't be scared of not wanting silence. Don't be scared of being busy. Don't be scared of compromising on your social life for something that you love, or finding people that fit into your circle. And don't be scared of reading 1,000 books or just being stopped in your tracks by a piece of graffiti or a noise or a sound or a word, and just take a bit of time to think about what you're doing. That's it. Think about why. We all know book test. But how is that book test coming to be? You know, when you watch Harry Potter, you don't instantly jump to the scene of him fighting Voldemort. But that's what magic and mentalism does. There's a story that each of the props are considered characters in that story. The location, Hogwarts is treated as a character. It's like, I read a blog about that some time ago, and I thought that was really poignant, and I took that away from that. It's like a prop is a character. How was this character finding its way onto the stage? It belongs as much airtime. It belongs as much. It deserves as much appreciation as airtime as the person that you're inviting up to pick that book up.
Yeah.
That person had to walk from their chair to get there. They didn't fly.
Yeah.
So this book, how is it becoming a part of this story? Is that story true to your character, or are you just putting it there because the method says so? What's the problem with the method? Is the performance becoming a casualty of that method? And if so, how do you fix that problem? You're a problem solver first and foremost. I mean, and if that's not a problem to you, that's all right as well.
Yeah, like you're saying, just to not be scared, I guess, right? And just almost in general.
Yeah, and don't be scared to say that it's not for you. Like, look, everything I've ever put out might not be for you. It might not be, and that's all right. But, what I'd say is still read it, still buy it, still read it, because A, it puts money in my pocket, and B, there might be something in there that you never thought you'd like, and you end up liking it. You know what I mean? There's so like I said to you, I put films on in the background on Netflix that I don't expect to watch. But every so often there'll be one that comes along and it totally changes the way that I think about everything, because I'm experiencing things that I normally generally wouldn't. Trying foods, traveling to places, becoming cultured.
Well, like you're saying, it's also I get to be able to be open enough to experience the world that's around us. There's so many gems that are there to be taken. So if you wake up just a little bit,
That's it. It's just opening your eyes to seeing what's in front of your face.
realize, realize, realize.
I think that's the best place to wrap this.
Well, thank you so much for the time and all the incredible gems. I mean, it was really, you seem like a very heartfelt, sincere, genuine, and generous person. So it was very pleasing to spend some time with you. I know, like, obviously through your schedule and everything. And for sure, there's a lot of gems in here for other people to be able to build upon. So hopefully be able to keep in touch, and wishing you just nothing but a success going forward with any of your endeavors and in your personal life and everything.
Well, the same back to you, and thank you for listening, and thank you to the people that are watching and listening this, because it honestly does mean a lot to me. And I'm like I say, I'm very open and receptive to sharing with you some of those passion pieces. But yeah, so yeah, everybody watching, take care.